In this video, we're going to take a look at how varying interest rates can affect home affordability for you. Interest rates, as we've mentioned before, are one of the most important factors in the housing market. Unless you are paying cash for a home, and let's face it, you're not watching this video if that's you. So for you, interest rates are really important because they directly affect how expensive of a home you can afford. Now, most people don't shop for a home based on the overall price. At least they don't start that way. Home buyers don't say, I'm going to buy a $250,000 or $350,000 home. Over the course of a 15 or 30-year mortgage, that number doesn't mean quite as much as you might think it would. No, most people start by deciding what their monthly budget is for their mortgage payment. Then they go from there. So if you say you can afford a payment of $1,500 per month, we'll use that number along with any cash down payment you might want to add to calculate your total home budget. Or if you say, I'd really like to keep my payment below $1,200 per month, but I can go as high as $1,500. Well, that will give us a range to search for when we look at homes. So then why do interest rates matter so much? Let's look at an online loan calculator. First, I have a mortgage calculator embedded in my KW site, and it works well if you have a sense of your budget and other factors. There's also a great feature in the KW app. If you download my KW app, you'll get the option if you go over to, once you open it up, if you go over to More, you click on More, and then you go down to Affordability Calculator. It will have something actually very similar to what we're going to look at on NerdWallet, but there's a few features on NerdWallet for this purpose anyway that I do like. But this is also a great function. You can move around your credit score where you land, different loan types, put in an appropriate APR, which we'll talk a little bit about, and you can even get that from NerdWallet. But this is also really a pretty good tool right there on the KW app. But for our purposes here, I'm actually going to direct you to one of my favorite websites from my teacher days, nerdwallet.com. A little free promotion for them, but it's a great resource if you're looking to learn more about personal finances. I'll link both sites in the video description, but let's take a look at one of their mortgage calculators. All right, so once you get to the NerdWallet website, what you're going to do is look up at the top of the screen. You're going to find calculators. You're going to go down to mortgages. And then we're going to go over to how much house can I afford? And it will ask you, if it's the first time visiting the site for you, it's going to ask you some information about where you live, or at least where you're shopping for a home at, and what your income is. And that's also that it can give you some personalized numbers based on its budgeting software. So in this case, I used Indianapolis, Indiana. Of course, that is the area that I work out of. And then I also used a $60,000 income, or in this case, breaks it down monthly. So it broke it down to $5,000. Okay, and so that's the example that I've got on my screen. All right. Now, one of the things that I really like about this this particular calculator is that I mentioned to you that usually what you'll do is you'll come to me and you'll say, "Hey, we can afford $1,300 a month right here." Okay, you can move this up and down to see what type of home you could potentially afford. Okay, so as I move it up, if I want to go up to like $1,500 a month, right? I can see that I can afford maybe up, if I really want to stretch it to $1,500 a month, we could go as high as $233 or so. All right, all the way up from $200,000. So that can give us a range that we need to look at. All right, so you can move that all around to be like, okay, maybe we prefer $1,200 a month, so we can start out, kind of the low range. We can look at some of those $180,000 homes, and then we can go all the way up into the 200s, and that's a pretty big range, but it does give you a little bit of ability to work within that range to kind of see what you get for your money. All right, now we're focusing mainly on interest rates right now. All right, so if you look over at the right side of the screen, you'll see right now I selected good for credit score. Obviously, if you have average, your credit score or your average credit, your interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. So this will move it up and down based on the kind of the current interest rates that are being seen in your area. All right, so it's 7.1%. Okay, that's good credit, right? And you can see how it's affecting that home affordability over on my left, right? So the better your rate is, of course, the more home you can get for your money. Now, with that said, that's really where the interest rate changing can have a pretty big impact, right? So what were we looking at here a second ago? That was, we'll put in 6.8%, which is a pretty common rate, at least right at the moment. So 6.8%, $1,300 a month. It's saying that you can afford a home that's roughly $207,000. If you had bought a couple of years ago when rates were really low, 3%, that jumps up to almost $300,000. Okay, so you have some people with very modest budgets that were able to afford a lot of home for that money. So that is really one of the big concerns and one of the biggest talking points about interest rates right now is that as that rate moves around, well, yeah, so does that affordability, what your money can buy you. And so people are having to stretch their budgets a little bit more. All right. So I definitely encourage you to play around on this tool a little bit. As you look around, you'll see it does give you a 20% down payment for a conventional loan. There are some other loan options out there that you can do 0%. Generally, there's some other fees, private mortgage insurance, PMI that goes with that. So that can also change numbers. So there are a lot of different options out there. And so that's one of those things that, real estate agent, a mortgage advisor or loan advisor can definitely let you know what some of your options are. So that pretty much does it for interest rates to determine your budget. Now, I do want to add some optimism here. As we saw, the low interest rates really increase home affordability for borrowers. However, over the last couple of years, when borrowers are able to afford so much more, what do you think happened? Well, of course, sellers began to increase prices as those rates increased demand, and buyers ended up competing with each other, and that demand increased prices. As we saw, the low interest rates really increase affordability for borrowers. However, the fact that borrowers were able to afford so much more pushed home prices up significantly. If you were just selling or downsizing, this was great, but buyers ended up paying a lot more for homes despite the low rates. So despite a housing market that's still pretty hot, it's really calmed those crazy housing price increases down a bit, which of course is a large part of why the Fed did what they did with interest rates. So just keep an eye on this YouTube channel, of course, subscribe, or you can check out my website and my blog, as I'll be updating market conditions regularly and always giving you the most up-to-date information that I can.